Kelly Clarkson is the original American Idol. She won the very first season of the show in 2002, which catapulted her into being one of America's biggest stars. Many of the contestants from TV singing shows and even some winners disappear into oblivion, but not Kelly. She's managed to have a career that has spanned nearly 2 decades. She remains the most successful American Idol alum to this day, and it doesn't appear to be changing anytime soon. As stated before, some winners and contestants are never heard of again after the show, and others get tied up in bad contracts that suck them dry to the point that they don't even have a fair opportunity at clean stardom anymore. As a result of winning the competition, Kelly earned a 7-album record deal with RCA Records. Now, whether this contract was exactly bad, we can't say. It afforded her a ton of hit albums, songs, and a lucrative fortune. But what we can say for a fact is that the contract didn't always allow her the artistic freedom she wanted, which resulted in public feuds with her label and constant delays of many of her albums. Unlike winners that would come after her, Kelly benefited from being the very first winner, when the phenomenon was new and had just begun to sweep America and the world, so she was bound to have at least 1 or 2 hit singles, whether she remained a presence of force or not. Present day, Kelly has made a path for herself that is so different from her American Idol image, it's easy to forget where she started. But one thing that has remained a constant is her authenticity, and that authenticity is something that she's carried throughout her career. When refusing to do things she was not comfortable or satisfied with, when her label tried to force things upon her. Kelly Clarkson has always been a great vocalist, but her journey and irrepressibility really just commands respect in one way or another. Kelly's official debut single was A Moment Like This, which was her graduation song from American Idol, so to speak. It was an instant hit, launching straight to the top spot. However, her debut album Thankful would experience many delays and took a while to be ready, due to Kelly not being completely satisfied with some of the songs. However, there was one particular song on the album that Kelly fought for and literally cried to have it on her album, which is the lead single Miss Independent, which was co-penned by Miss Christina Aguilera. Kelly didn't even know Christina had wrote the track until a little later. My label at the time didn't tell me, but I guess the producers and writers started it with her, but then it wasn't finished, so I ended up writing the rest and finishing it, without even knowing she was on it or ever a part of it, she recalled. I swear to God, I got my album booklet and I was like, oh my god, my first album. And then I was like, why is Christina Aguilera on it? That's weird. And I love her, so I'm like, cool, but what? It was a weird thing. Kelly fighting to have Miss Independent included on her debut album Thankful is one singular incident that would be reflective of her career for albums to come. For her second album Breakaway, her career was elevated to completely new heights, and it's the album where she began to be seen as more than a former American Idol contestant. People were unsure about her branding as an artist, and if she would be able to become the pop star that she was envisioned to be. With Breakaway, she truly broke away from the Idol eyes and carved a path of her own. She opted for a more pop rock sound, which resulted in the album going on to sell over 12 million copies worldwide. As successful as the album was, it wasn't cultivated without hiccups. With one of the big hits off the album, Because of You, Kelly also fought to keep that on the record. I did cry in his office once. I cried after I played him a song I had written about my life called Because of You. She's talking about Clive Davis. I cried because he hated it and told me verbatim that I was a shit writer who should be grateful for the gifts that he bestows upon me. He continued on about how the song didn't rhyme and how I should just shut up and sing. This was devastating coming from a man who I, as a young girl, considered a musical hero and was so honored to work with. But I continued to fight for this song and the label relented, and it became a worldwide hit. She also said, I just think it's funny that all these middle-aged guys told me, you don't know how a pop song needs to sound. I'm a 23-year-old girl, but I was fighting those battles alone. Her label executive Clive Davis was hesitant to allow Kelly to write some of her own material for her album. Kelly had her first collaboration with Dr. Luke on this album with her classic 2004 hit, Since You've Been Gone, and the follow-up, Behind These Hazel Eyes. Her follow-up album to Breakaway was My December, an album that caused tons of label infighting and was a significant departure from her previous material, going in a very dark, anti-commercial direction. It is often considered her lost album. This album resulted in a cancelled tour, fired manager, and a strong fight for creative control. It was messy to say the least. Kelly felt her creativity was being stifled and her label just wanted her to continue to make huge pop songs. In an interview with Elle magazine, Clarkson said Clive Davis offered her $10 million to remove 5 songs from the album and include songs with more hit potential. Kelly is quoted saying, "I get you don't like the album, you're 80, you're not supposed to like my album, but Clive, I'm going to make tons of albums, it doesn't have to be mainstream every time." My December was released and it's fair to say it wasn't as big commercially, but Kelly also feels like it was sabotaged and not given the proper opportunity to prevail. After Clive wrote about Kelly in his memoir, she cleared some things up. He also goes on to say, "My December wasn't successful because I co-penned the album and it didn't have pop hits." Well, first, let me say, I've co-penned many of my pop hits. Secondly, My December went platinum. It sold 20,000 less than All I Ever Wanted, which followed My December. Hardly a huge failure. Never Again, the only single they released in the US from that record, was a top 10 hit. I'm very proud of that, and I have my fans to thank. But again, what's most interesting about his story is what he leaves out. He doesn't mention how he stood up in front of his company at a convention and belittled me and my music and completely sabotaged the entire project. It never had a chance to reach its full potential. My December was an album I needed to make for myself for many reasons, and the fact that I was so completely disregarded and disrespected was so disheartening. There really aren't words to explain. After My December, she made a return to form with her 2009 album All I Ever Wanted, with singles that make up a lot of thousands pop gems, starting with My Life Would Suck Without You. It is one of Kelly's signature hits. It previously held the record for the biggest jump to number 1, debuting at number 97 and rising to the top spot the following week. My Life Would Suck Without You has taken on a life of its own, outside of being another karaoke staple. Her story behind it has become more well known throughout the years. Kelly refused a writing credit on the song because she vehemently opposed working with Dr. Luke. She told her label that she would work with anyone in the world, just not him, but her label told her they would not release her album if she didn't agree to work with him. I was making a point to the people working with me going, "This is how much I don't want to do this," she said. "I don't care about the money. I don't care about, oh, you're going to be the most famous person ever if you do this. That's not what holds weight in my life." Clarkson stated that Dr. Luke did pen the track. However, she made substantial changes to the song that was owed a co-writing credit. "There's a lot of times in my career where you don't see my name on the song. That's because sometimes I don't write them," she said. "A lot of times I do change the song in a way that probably you should ask for credit, but I don't because the song was already great. I just made it more me. I think a lot of artists still credit a lot from writers, which is super crappy because that's their livelihood. But if I deserve it, I usually ask," she continued. "And I did deserve it on My Life Would Suck Without You, just because I changed it a bit." They brought up writing credit at the end. They were like, "Well, you changed the song," and I was like, "I don't want my name near his. I want to pretend this didn't happen in my life, and I want to forget it." Kelly stated she lost out on hundreds of thousands of dollars, if not millions of dollars, from not accepting a writing credit, but stands by her statement being more important than the money. For one of the best songs that she's ever recorded, titled Already Gone, she tried to get the song removed from the album, and even for her label not to release it. This time not because of her label, but because of songwriter and singer Ryan Tedder, who co-penned a song titled Halo by Beyonce, and both Gone and Halo share sonic similarities. Kelly thought it was incredibly insulting that Ryan would give her a song that was similar to another artist. She was insulted and angry and thought people would accuse her of copying Beyonce. Ryan responded by saying, "Already Gone is one of the best songs I've ever written or produced since Bleeding Love, and stands tall on its own merits apart from Halo. They are two entirely different songs conceptually, melodically, and lyrically, and I would never try to dupe an artist such as Kelly Clarkson or Beyonce into recording over the same musical track. The idea is both hurtful and absurd. I think when people hear Already Gone, they will hear what I hear, one of the greatest female vocalists on earth, giving her most haunting and heartbreaking performances on the songs she helped write." The statement continues, "I challenge people to listen and form their own opinions." Kelly's alleged diss track towards Ryan titled Wash, Rinse, and Repeat would later leak, with some pretty straightforward lyrics at the songwriter. Does it sound similar? Does it linger in your ear? like Something You Remember from Just Last Year, as well as Music from the Past from the Present, well, Just Last Week, We Will Change a Note and Get Away With It, Wait and See. By the time Kelly was trying to get her label to halt the release of Already Gone, it was far too late, and Already Gone out into the world, so to speak. And honestly, her label made the right decision. Despite the similarities, it is one of her best ballads and one of the finest tracks of her career. I Do Not Hook Up was co-written by Katy Perry and was originally intended to be included on Perry's debut album, One of the Boys. Kelly's 2011 album Stronger was a step in the right direction for her and her label. She made it a goal to not use a lot of autotune, if any, on this album. She hated the sound it gave her voice. This was the first album where she had no fights with her label, and they agreed upon everything. The album was successful and achieved 2 popular hits, which included the title track and Mr. Know-It-All. Sidetrack album. Wrapped in Red was released in 2013 and became one of the best-selling Christmas albums in recent history. It features the bubbling Christmas standard Underneath the Tree, which has become increasingly popular with every Christmas season. Piece by Piece, her 7th album in 2015, which featured a string of hits, fulfilled her recording contract with RCA Records, and she began shopping for new contracts. The following year, it was announced that she had signed a new long-term record deal with Atlantic Records, which allowed her to have more creative freedom and work on more R&B inspired music that she has always wanted to make, which resulted in her most recent album, Meaning of Life. Speaking about her constant fight for creative control with Rolling Stone, she says, "I've really pissed people off because there have been some real doozies sent my way that I was like, no. And then my project gets sat on, but you have to put your foot down at some point and go, I have one life and I don't want to live it like this. And it's cool if you feel like my ship is sinking, but I just want to make sure I'm at the helm, that if I'm going to go down, it's because of myself. Compromising is okay, but compromising who you are as a human is not." Thankfully, this story has quite a happy ending, and Kelly got all she ever wanted. She had to break away to achieve her goals, but it only made her stronger. She made it through My December and will later be Wrapped in Red. Piece by piece, she forced her vision relentlessly, until she was invincible and achieved the meaning of life.